I'm Kathleen Dorn. I'm a mercury detox coach. People say to me, you're really passionate about mercury poisoning. And they're right. I am. And I'd like to tell you my story and my journey to find healing. Now, my health challenges began as a child, and so this is where I will begin. Heavy metal poisoning is easily passed down from a mom to her child and has a detrimental impact on their health. And as a child, I suffered from periodic stomach pains, leg aches, and allergies. And I remember getting these horrible pains in the night. And when all else failed, my exasperated mom stood me on my head and managed to momentarily relieve the pain. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but whenever I didn't know what to do years later, I'd do a handstand against a wall to try and alleviate the pain. Now today, I realize that my mom had many amalgam fillings and mercury was passed down to me through her placenta and her breast milk, and so I was poisoned from mercury even as a child. As a teenager, I had strong reactions to carbonated drinks and fast foods. Every time I drank pop, I'd get a nosebleed. So I decided to give up drinking pop and began to clean up my diet, and to my amazement, my nosebleeds stopped. I had an epiphany as a teenager. I noticed that what I ate had a direct impact on my health, and even though giving up pop and cutting back on sweets felt really weird at the time, I didn't want those nosebleeds anymore. And this provided me with a strong incentive to stay away from junk food. I began to menstruate around 13 years of age. My periods were normal at first, but they became really painful. In my late teens, I got 10 amalgam fillings and a root canal within a short period of time. All of the amalgams should be removed when preparing a root canal tooth for a crown, and in my case, the dentist left some amalgam under the crown, as you can see in the diagram. This amalgam leaches down through the root of the tooth and into the gum, causing the tattoo in the gum. And in my opinion, it should be illegal to place a crown over amalgam fillings because it leaks mercury into the tissues, causing mercury tattoos. However, several years later, I questioned my dentist and he said this was within the guidelines of the Dental Association. At this point, chronic fatigue set in and my periods became a bloody nightmare. I dreaded that time of the month because I was bedridden for a week due to the heavy bleeding, and it took another week to recover my strength. Now, I never made the connection that the dental work was poisoning me with mercury and causing hormonal imbalances and menorrhagia. Now, I sought help from conventional doctors and specialists, and they did many tests and found nothing wrong. They gave me birth control pills and other meds to control my pain and bleeding, but nothing worked, and the meds only made me feel worse. Now, the last resort they told me was to have a hysterectomy. Now, many of my aunties also suffered from menorrhagia, and so I thought I'd inherited this mystery illness. Now, in my quest to find answers, I turned to alternative health. I tried naturopath doctors, iridology, live blood cell analysis, and allergy elimination, just to name a few. Although I found some relief, my problems continued. I then decided to get treatment from the experts in the field of alternative health. I chose Century Wellness Center in Reno, Nevada because I'd read some amazing testimonies of people who were cured by their treatments, and so I was very hopeful. At the time, I was experiencing electric shocks that came from the left side of my mouth where I had a root canal tooth. They did a number of tests on me at the clinic and determined that my root canal tooth was indeed the root cause of the electric shocks, and it was recommended that I should have it removed ASAP because it was leaking mercury into my system. They said that after the tooth was extracted, the mercury would surface on my gum line in the form of tattoos, and they were correct. That's exactly what happened. I followed their advice and I had the tooth extracted by a dentist in Reno whom they recommended. Now, it should be noted that root canal teeth tend to be very brittle and should be pried loose before pulling or they will shatter. Now, the dentist did not use this procedure and the tooth shattered during extraction. He dug out the pieces that he could find, but the root tips were left behind, making it impossible for my jawbone to heal properly. Now, my experience has been that most regular dentists make this mistake because it's not required in their protocol. This is why it is of utmost importance to find a holistic dentist and insist that a tooth is extracted completely without leaving fragments behind. Always ask to see the tooth to make sure that none of the root tips broke off. Now, I didn't know any of this at the time. To my delight, the electric shocks quit overnight, and after the site healed, the mercury tattoos surfaced. The doctor at the clinic also told me to replace the 12 amalgam fillings in my mouth when I got home. They even had Hal Huggins' book called It's All in Your Head in the waiting room, but I failed to pick it up and read it because I was still of the opinion that the doctors would fix my problem. I didn't think I needed to inform myself and get involved. I am actually embarrassed to admit that now, because I could have saved myself years of confusion and suffering had I picked up that book and read it. Now, I failed to do my own research on mercury poisoning, and this is the reason why I am sharing my experience so that you don't make the same mistake that I did. While at the clinic, I was treated daily with intravenous vitamin C, homeopathics, and other products for 4 weeks, as well as several months at home. Although it was expensive, there was very little improvement in my health. Now, the clinic had a lot of advanced treatments, but my body could not respond and benefit until I'd gotten rid of all the mercury in my mouth. Now, I don't blame the doctors at the clinic, as they tried their best to inform me about the dangers of mercury poisoning. However, they're not dentists, and it's not ethical for them to be very critical about the work of other professionals. But in hindsight, I should have used the money I spent at the clinic to replace my amalgam fillings and detox from mercury. Now, I mention this because I frequently meet people who waste their money on supplements and treatments, and they don't get well because they haven't got to the root cause of their problem. So please take the time to inform yourself and don't ignore the root cause of your health problem like I did. We kept searching for answers, and after several years, we discovered NATE, Nabutopad's allergy elimination techniques. These treatments improved my state of health as my menorrhagia and chronic fatigue abated, and I was absolutely thrilled because I thought I'd found the cure to my health problems. I often see this with people who are mercury poisoned. They find something that gives them a substantial improvement, and they think that they've addressed the root cause. Don't be fooled like I was. At this point, I began replacing the amalgam fillings with a regular dentist because I was convinced that mercury was bad for me, but I was still very uneducated about the whole subject. I also wanted to replace the missing tooth, and I asked the dentist to remove the tattoos on my gum line. He talked me out of it, saying tattoos were harmless and suggested that I just place a bridge over top of the missing tooth. I reluctantly agreed. After all, I wasn't the dentist, so what did I know? Once the bridge was placed in my mouth, it wreaked havoc with my body. I remember it well because we went to my parents for Christmas, and that evening my heart began racing so rapidly that I couldn't settle down and go to sleep. I was awake all night, and for the next 6 months I slept very little. My health went downhill quickly. My heart seemed to be constantly racing, which left me exhausted but unable to sleep. I couldn't seem to catch my breath, and so I began sleeping with an oxygen tank. This really improved my breathing, but man, this was no way to live. Soon afterwards, I began to feel an electrical current on the left side of my head where the bridge was placed. I also began producing a huge amount of saliva, and if that wasn't bizarre enough, my entire left side became numb. So I went back to the dentist to place the bridge, and he told me to go see a doctor because he didn't know what was going on with me. So off I went to the doctor's office, and he ran a variety of tests and found nothing wrong. He suggested that I was slightly stressed out and prescribed some antidepressants and sleeping pills. It was true. I was stressed out because my body was falling apart, and I felt like hitting him over the head with a 2x4. But instead, I composed myself, took his sleeping pill prescription, and tried them for a night. But they so exacerbated my symptoms that I never tried them again. I threw them in the garbage. After this experience, we realized we were barking up the wrong tree. So in desperation, my precious husband went to the library and he got all the books he could find on mercury poisoning from dental amalgams. One of them was called It's All in Your Head by Dr. Hal Huggins, the same book I'd seen at the Century Wellness Clinic in Reno. This was a direct answer to our prayers. It explained my nightmares experience. I recommend it to everyone who has never heard of dental amalgam poisoning today because it is a real truth teller. After reading the book, we set up a phone consultation with Dr. Huggins. He didn't think I was going crazy. He told me to have the bridge removed yesterday. He said that it was most likely made of some metals which were causing a battery-like current in my mouth, and I finally understood why I felt this current on the left side of my head. I followed his instructions, had the bridge removed, and to my amazement, the numbness on my left side disappeared overnight. I could breathe easily again without an oxygen tank, and my saliva production became normal. The electrical current on the side of my head stopped, and I slept like a baby for the first time in months. The difference this made was truly miraculous. After this experience, I was completely convinced of the dangers of mercury and proceeded to have the rest of my amalgam fillings replaced. My body was so weak and allergic that I couldn't tolerate anesthetic and had to do without freezing. I had suffered so much by then, but I didn't care. I just wanted to get all that poison out of my mouth. I was so eager to begin the detox process. However, I still had the mercury tattoos and felt sensitivity in that area of my jaw. I was aware that cilantro pulls out mercury, so when I accidentally ate some at a restaurant, I would get a severe reaction. All the mercury needs to be out before you begin to detox. We showed the tattoos and shared my story with all the holistic dentists in my city, but they were all afraid to do corrective surgery. We knew of a holistic surgeon far away, but we had young kids at the time and very limited resources. We'd spent all our money to figure out the problem and had no means left to fix it. It took a lot of patience, but after about 10 years, we found a dentist in a nearby city who was trained in cavitational surgery. The picture on the screen shows what a cavitation looks like. There were 2 root tips filled with amalgam inside the cavitation. Even though the tooth was pulled about 12 years ago, the root tips were still connected to periodontal ligament. And it took several tries, but the dentist eventually got them out, cleaned the infection, and sewed it shut to heal. Before this procedure, I had a small sensitive swelling in the palm of my left hand that would hurt terribly when I touched it or tried to use it to open up jars or whatever. But it disappeared overnight. It was really quite bizarre, but kind of neat how after that cavitation was cleaned, that sore spot disappeared. I was finally ready to begin detox and I was thrilled. All the mercury fillings were out, the tattoos had been removed, and the cavitations cleaned. We searched for a practitioner in our area who was experienced with mercury detox, but never found one. So we eventually discovered Dr. Andrew Cutler's detox protocol with alpha-lipoic acid. My whole family used his detox protocol for several years, and there was a substantial improvement in my health. After some time, we stopped seeing any benefits, and it felt kind of aggravating, so we stopped the protocol and looked for something else. We kept searching, and eventually we figured out a routine that I believe is the best detox program available. I say this with confidence because we tried many detox programs out there. There's a lot more to detox than finding the right chelator, because the diet and supplement programs are equally as important. I've explained all this on my website, mercurydetoxcoach.com. After hearing my story, you now have a better understanding of why I'm so passionate about mercury poisoning, because it nearly took my life. My goal is to encourage you to get the mercury out, stop the poisoning, and teach you a very pleasant and effective detox program that'll give you your life back. You might have amalgam fillings and yet have excellent health at the moment. How can that be? What happens is the mercury builds up in your body and eventually you'll reach a toxic overload. I meet people all the time who were healthy in their 20s and 30s, but now they're in their 50s and 60s and struggling with the same symptoms that I used to have. Don't kid yourself. Mercury poisoning affects everyone eventually, so please get informed and take action while you can. If you enjoyed my story, please give me a like and share it with your friends. Get the word out there. If you have a similar story, let me know in the comments below, because I would love to hear from you.